So I'm going to welcome everyone to our September Provider Forum. And we have Stacey Hoaglund with us. She's the president of the Autism Society of Florida, an educational advocate with FND of Broward, statewide coordinator of partners in policymaking, author, disability consultant, and parent. She trains in a wide range of topics related to autism, including water safety, behavior, communication, and collaborative processes. So one of the things that we were trying to do for our provider forums is get experts in touch on the 7 disabilities covered by APD under their iBudget waiver. So with that, I'm gonna let Stacey take it away. Do you want to allow people just to put questions in the chat? And we'll go over them as we can.
Yep. Sounds good.
All righty.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. So what I'm going to do, well, here, I'll just talk a little bit more just for a second about myself. So like many of us here, we kind of get into this world of advocacy and trying to do good things for good people because I had a son 29 years ago now.
Okay.
He was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, but like many people with children that don't have visible disabilities, that was my first experience at advocacy because my doctor, which we still hear today, said, "Oh, he's fine. Don't compare him to his brother. Boys develop later, blah, 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 blah." Parents still hear that stuff today. So it makes me sad because, early intervention, we lose very valuable time when we don't get what we need from our physicians early on so that we can get going on what we need to do. So I started out that way. And then, those things just kind of fall into your lap when you find injustices. And so much of really what all of you guys do is really advocate for yourselves and for people that you know, people that you don't know, which is really such a blessing when you get to go and speak for people and do what you need to do for people that you have never even met before. Just think about that for a minute. That's a really, truly special person that does that. And so I thank you all for all the dedication that you give to the community across the state of Florida, for all those that you will never meet, but whose lives that you touch every single day. So I got involved with the Autism Society of Broward, where I live. And then I kind of trickled up to Florida, and it's been an amazing ride. So I'm going to talk a little bit this morning. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you a little bit about what the Autism Society of Florida does. And we actually just finished, we just approved it last Thursday night, our strategic plan. So as soon as I kind of clean that up a little bit, I will post it to the Autism Society of Florida website so that anybody could take a look at what we're trying to do. And we have a lot of work cut out for us for the next few years. So good stuff.
Real quick, Stacey, will you be able to touch on some characteristics, of autism and what providers can look for in addition to the Autism Society?
Okay, well, I'm happy to do that. So I actually was on the, oh, goodness gracious. I want to say it was probably 15 years ago. The CDC, they called teams from every state, so all 50 states, so the Centers for Disease Control, because it was at the time when autism was getting recognized by some of our leadership in Washington that, we got something going on here. There's a lot more people being diagnosed with autism now. So maybe it was more like 20 years ago. Time goes too fast for me. So the CDC called a bunch of us to Atlanta, and I was really fortunate enough to be on that team. And so I was the parent rep. It was, immunologists, physicians, pediatricians, advocates, all kinds of, so it was really a nice group. I want to say there was about 10 of us from Florida who went up. And we were charged with helping which we now know as Learn the Signs, Act Early campaign by the CDC. And so we came together, and each of the teams were charged with sitting at their table. So each state had a table, and you would sit and you would talk about, all right, what is autism? How is it impacting the people from your state? And how could we do better at getting children recognized earlier? And so in doing so, we were really able to tease out, okay, so, what is autism? What do we see? And so, when we work with our families who, here, let me back up for a second. I was in a meeting last week with the Early Learning Coalition. And the thing that they shared with me that I think really encompasses a lot of what we're going to talk about here is that she said that we keep getting kids kicked out of preschool. And a lot of times that's how a parent, sadly, starts thinking something is up with my kid. So we're going to see delayed communication skills. Now, we've got some kids on the spectrum. So, right, it's a spectrum. So we've got some kids that they're not speaking. So they're non-speakers. Some people might refer to them as nonverbal. And then you have the other end of the spectrum where you've got some kids with some pretty precocious vocabulary, but it's different. So you might see a 4-year-old who's using words that a 20-year-old uses. That's a little different. That's something. And so I know it's so vast, but it's learning differently and processing differently. It's looking at the world differently. The one thing that we find across all the people who have autism share with us, no matter where you happen to lie on that communication level, is sensory. Being very affected by their environment, loud sounds, lights. A lot of times I'll walk into a classroom, even like a classroom that might be for kids with autism, and the lights are dimmed. I've had some teachers who actually have lamps around the classroom because the fluorescent lights in the classroom really bother the kids. Some people with autism tell me that they can literally hear the buzzing of the ballast. That's that little box thing up in the fluorescent lights that most of us don't even notice. And even if we sat and we really listened, we wouldn't hear them. So that hypersensitivity to sound. Of course, unusual play is another thing that we might see. My son would much rather have a spoon from the kitchen than a toy car. He would line things up. And if you tried to mess up his line, that was a problem. On those shelves back there, if you see right back, let's see if I can do this right. That right there are videos, right? So that's like the little shelf that has all of our DVDs in it. If I go over there and I move something, he comes out here, he will notice that I did something. Now, if I or most of you guys went over there and you examined that shelf, you're really not going to see. You're going to be like, well, it's not in alphabetical order. It's not in order by genre. What's the order? So I had to ask him because I didn't know what it was. And so the order is by production company. So those are the kind of things that you might find that are just a little bit different than what most of us think and how we process information. There's also a difference in the way that they experience what most of us think would be an emotional situation. And that's why when we train between a lot of police officers, which I'll share in just a minute, a little bit more detail with Autism Society, but our people can very easily get in trouble with law enforcement because they don't respond emotionally the way that most of us would. If we get pulled over, we're driving and we get pulled over, we get nervous, we get quiet, we don't really want to say anything, we don't want to get in trouble with the police. And the exact opposite may happen with a person with autism. And we've heard horror stories about how that person then is removed from the vehicle and taken to the station. Not because they technically broke a law, but just because their response to the police officer was different than what they had anticipated. And so, officers deal with criminals. So they think that this person is trying to manipulate them, and then it can go south really fast. So, and I don't know, on our website, I think I have a QR code in my presentation, but it's autismfl.org. We actually have a page for people newly diagnosed. So we have that page. We have another page for adults, because adults, we have so many. I will actually tell you that most of our calls today are not by parents of children. They're by adults. They're adults that are saying, I want to try to find out if I have autism, because childhood was really hard for me and adulthood's not that much better. I don't have any friends. I'm losing job after job. And so we have adults on our board, and they've been very helpful in helping us create our adult page. And on the adult page, our goal is to increase it, but we want to be able to provide a list of psychologists, neurologists that adults can go to, because you will find that most of the people that diagnose autism are they're like pediatric neurologists, pediatric psychologists, and there's not a lot out there still today for people who are adults. And some of these adults that I meet, I'm really surprised that they made it through the school system, and it's very sad that they didn't get identified, because their autism is fairly significantly affecting them. The quality of life is very poor. And so our goal is to try to help them. And as you all know, trying to obtain services from APD as, say, a 30-year-old that was never diagnosed before is an enormous challenge. And some of these people are ending up getting Baker acted time after time. And it's just a really horrific situation for many people. So we spend a lot of time trying to educate the whole gambit, right? From childhood to literally until death, helping people with autism kind of access the services that they need, and really helping them discover who they are. We have people with autism that are accomplishing incredible things when they are provided the support that they need. But when they don't, and we stress this to legislators, we do a lot of legislative advocacy, that then they become just another person who is at home on a couch, receiving maybe a Social Security check, services through APD, when in fact, they could be taxpaying citizens with a job and a quality of life that we all hope for ourselves. So that's kind of that. Hopefully I didn't ramble on too long. So let me see. Hopefully this is going to work. So you guys will have to let me know. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Can't see you. So somebody could say to me. Yes? No?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
we
good.
can see it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that's just the Autism Society. Okay, so here's some stats. So the last poll that was done was in actually during COVID. So it was kind of interesting that the CDC, even though they were dealing with COVID, they did have another poll. So that was 1 in 36. Places like California are actually 1 in 22. So and let me just say to that, a lot of people will say, oh, well, we're getting better at diagnosing. Yeah, we are. So that's a portion of it. But the number of children who are being diagnosed who have significant autism, non-speakers, significant behaviors, being Baker acted. So that end of the spectrum is also on an enormous uptick. So it's not just those kids we would have missed before. Military, we have 1 in 35. And we have historically run higher in military. And there is some pretty decent research on that, connecting autism, diagnosis of autism, to basically what we're doing to our planet. Most, and if you didn't know this, when I found out, I was just horrified by it. But most of our military bases are built on what's called Superfund sites, which were garbage dumps. And so there are a bunch of scientists that are a lot smarter than me that are looking into the pollutants that are in their water, in their air, and their buildings and their structures, to see if how that's related to autism. Because the people who are researching autism do say that it is connected to the environment. Yes, we definitely have a genetic component. You'll find multiples in families. A lot of parents who have autism have children who have autism, but they do know that it's something environmental that just They just don't know what. Medical costs, intensive behavioral interventions for children can cost up to 40 to 60,000 per year. They're 160 times more likely to drown, 7 times more likely to die by suicide. Now, this one is kind of interesting, and I think we can kind of all relate to this, no matter what disability you're talking about. 63% are more likely to be bullied. However, that's based upon people who have reported being bullied. Most people I know on the autism spectrum really, unless it was a really outward being bullied, like it became physical, they wouldn't be able to tell if they were being bullied or not by somebody who's a slick bully. So I think it's closer to 100% personally. And that's all disabilities. I don't think that that's just autism. 40, and this was another one, 48% wander from safety. I respect the people who take the data, but I do not know one parent of a child with autism who hasn't had that moment where you turn around and your child is gone, including my own on multiple occasions. So again, it's 48%, and there is a direct correlation to wandering and drowning. I mean, it's 91%. I don't think I have this in this presentation, but 91% of all drowning deaths in autism resulted from wandering. So it is significant. And 20% have a run-in with police. I think that lately this ticked up to 22%. So by age 21. All right, so what do we do? Maybe it's, all right, so parent support groups. Our parent support group for any parent who's interested is on the first Tuesday of the month. All the stuff you can find on our website. So it's first Tuesday of the month, 7 o'clock. We do most of this kind of stuff is done online, virtual, because we cover the whole state. So that's for all parents. They usually get like between 20, 30 people who will attend those each month, sometimes a little bit more. Military support groups, because that's, if you have background in military, it's super hard when you're moving often. You got to start in a new state, sometimes a new country with your family, and try to figure out the special education system all over again. So it's a huge issue. So we have a specific group for them. They are on the third Wednesday of each month. Law enforcement training, we do lots of law enforcement training. Our lead trainers is a husband and wife team and their boys. That's one of the boys there at the back that you see sitting there. And so the 4 of them, the father just retired. He was a executive captain with the Broward Sheriff's Office for 37 years. And so they're an incredible team. So trained over 17,000 law enforcement officers, 1,100 firefighters. This across the state. That's Martin there on the right side with the team. First aid. So we started this program this past year, and I see I have an old one there. That one was from June. But we do these in conjunction with the fire chiefs across the state. And so we're setting it up, and we attend, but it's the firefighters that usually it's the chief or the assistant chiefs that do the trainings for us. We're going to try to hit all 67 counties. I think we've done like 7 or 8, maybe 10 up to this point. But those are going really well. And that's an effort to try to save kids from drowning. In case you didn't know, this is for everyone. For every 1 person who dies from drowning, 8 survive because someone knew how to do CPR and how to respond in an emergency. So if you're not trained in CPR, please go get CPR. And it's just not a certification. I'm CPR certified, and if you are too, it's like a 3 to 4 hour class. That's not what this is. We try to get them done in about an hour because we know people's attention span. It's very hands-on. We have the mannequins there. They do, the firefighters are awesome. They also teach us about, and I just learned this recently, I still call it the Heimlich maneuver, right? For somebody who's choking. Apparently there was a lawsuit. They can't call it Heimlich anymore. I don't know. But anyway, so they teach us about that. They teach us about how to put a tourniquet on. So those are really good. So if you see one in your area, our focus is on autism families, but anybody can come. So if you see it, just jump on. Training emergency room staff. So we do the people who are with EMS, but we also have found, and probably some of you guys have found this as well, the emergency room is just not a good place for people with disabilities. In general, they do not know how to work with our people. And so we also train the staff in emergency rooms. Social events, so we do this is painting with a twist. And these we do them, so some of these individuals you see have autism, some are parents. So we do it as just an event that, anybody and everybody can come out to and enjoy themselves. And let me tell you, when we do these particularly, the most amazing artists are not the parents. It's the adults on the spectrum. We do monthly art and keyboarding classes for kids. Our next art classes on Monday. So they run, it's the third Monday of the month. And I actually can't tell you about the keyboarding. I would have to look at our website because she had the instructor. It's a mom and son team, and the son is actually the teacher. The mom kind of coordinates things. And they had to change it around for a couple people that were in the program, but the kids love that. Advocating at the state capitol. What we started doing this year is we started doing what we refer to as the disability road trip. And so we've been meeting with legislators in their offices for the last couple months. And I'm hoping that you guys know, but the incoming Speaker of the House, Danny Perez, has a brother with autism. The incoming Senate President, Alberton, has a grandson that is just in the middle of getting a diagnosis. And we are keeping track of all the legislators who have a personal connection to autism. But I have to say, I don't think I've met a legislator in these last couple months that doesn't either have a person in their family with autism or know someone, right? I mean, it used to be when I would because I train a lot of water safety instructors. And I used to be where I would say, who in here knows someone who has autism? Now I say, who in here doesn't? Because that's actually your smaller group. These days, almost everybody knows someone. So we're using that. So I encourage you guys to, this year, I think is going to be our year with the Capitol and influencing legislators. So just keep that in mind that our two most influential people in leadership, and if you're not aware of this, the people in leadership, they make the decisions. They make the decisions whether the bill that you're working on is going to be heard or not. So I encourage you to reach out to them. Danny Perez is in Miami. Alberton covers Charlotte, Hardy, parts of Lee. So if you're in those neck of the woods, especially, you want to check in with them. So these are just some of the things that we've done. 120 swim lessons for kids with autism, which are a little bit different. We have, it just hit, actually, I'm probably going to be posting on it later today. The governor approved a voucher, but it's for all kids. It's not for just kids with disabilities. And it's $500,000. It's not great. I mean, Broward County alone goes through that amount of money every year. So we are looking for more money next year, but it just hit to where families who it's income based, you can apply for the voucher that's part of that 500,000. Now, these swim lessons, they cost more than what the voucher will give. So as we get funding, we're able to give grants to swim schools. We don't give scholarships to families. We give the grants to swim schools because they know best how to spend the dollars. And we work in conjunction with the Department of Education. So we contact different school districts. For instance, right now so if you know anybody in Miami-Dade, but it's got to be South Miami, we got a grant to provide swim lessons to way down south. So Homestead, Florida City, and the Northern Keys. And it's not easy to find swim instructors down there. I know a lot of people who don't live down in South Florida, you probably think, oh, South Miami, there's lots of people. Well, Homestead is rural. It's like literally farms. And there's not, so I have money that I want to give, and I'm having a hard time finding swim schools. 2934, so 2,934 swim instructors have been trained. We train both across the state of Florida and actually nationally as well. So those CPR classes, we've done those. We've given out 600 door alarms. There was about, oh, time is so funny these days. I want to say it was about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, that an officer, you might have seen it on the news, an officer in Volusia got called out to a home for an autistic child who had escaped the house. Because the officer had training in autism, he knew go to the water. So he went to the water. We actually just recognized him a week ago. We met with him, we met with the legislators there, and we gave him a nice little symbol of recognition, and we were able to talk to him. And so he told us, because in the news you'll see that, because one officer had a body cam on, so you'll see him running to the water. He finds the kid, he scoops the kid up, saves the kid's life. When I met with him a week ago, I said, how'd that happen? Like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you knew about the water. And he said, actually, okay, I got the kid out of the water, but what saved that kid was the door alarm. Simple little $12 door alarm saved that kid's life, because the door alarm went off. Parents knew he's out. They called 911. Officers came. Officer knew to go to the water. The officer said to me that he was literally holding onto a stump in the water. And when he grabbed the kid, the stump broke. So seconds matter when it's drowning stuff. Seconds. That kid could have been gone any second. And so was the door alarm. So if you don't have a door alarm, get a door alarm. If you have children in the house. We do an online streaming program. Actually, like literally last night at probably 3 o'clock, because I couldn't sleep, I actually posted something about this. So we've changed a little bit on this. We do have amazing presenters, but now all you have to be is a member of the Autism Society, and you can grab all the speakers. And let me tell you, because I interviewed them for these, and they are truly amazing. So you want to check that out. 250 hurricane kits to families in need. We've trained over almost 4,000 job coaches across the state. Our focus with that, it is job coaches, but we also have, like that room right there, we've got a bunch of waiver support coordinators, job coaches, VR counselors. So anybody who's helping people with disabilities, all disabilities. We actually did that as in a partnership. We still do it. Been doing it for like probably about 15 years with the Gold Coast Down Syndrome organization. And it's just, we moved, this was before COVID. Then COVID came, we started doing it online. And so that's how we've kept them online, because then we capture people from wherever they are. So those are pretty cool. So that always happens in March, and it's called the Training and Transition. So you can check it out on the website. You can register for that. It's free. Those are free. We have a podcast. I'm very excited to say 2 months ago, our podcast moved over from speakers like me to, we have 2 people on the spectrum, a woman and a guy, who run the podcast now. The woman, interestingly enough, was the one who was diagnosed at 2 years old, which is usually the opposite. Girls are usually diagnosed later. So she was diagnosed at 2, and the guy was diagnosed as an adult. So they're amazing. So you can check that out. It's on all your major podcast platforms. Peers is a social skills group for adults. They meet online. Again, they're from across the state. There's usually a waiting list. But our information is on the website. You could check that out, share it with anyone that you know. I want to say it's age 25 to 35 on that. But they form relationships. And actually, Conrad, who's one of our hosts for the podcast, he came out of the peer social group. All right. So, and then what can you do? Be part of the change by, basically joining the Autism Society. And that, so I don't have our QR code. So there's our website at the bottom. I need to add our QR code. I love QR codes. But you can go to the website there, autismfl.org. You can get all the information that I talked about today and a ton more. Let me stop sharing.
Okay, so we did have a couple questions in the chat.
All right.
Can you touch on autism and aggressive behavior, statistics or anything of that nature? Because that seems to get a lot of bad press.
Yes. So, well, okay, so there's a couple things. I'll just give statistics on a few things. So they say, for instance, epilepsy. Epilepsy occurs in about 35% of people with autism. I actually thought that we made it. My son did not have seizures when he was little, and he had his first one at 17 years old. And he has, knock on wood, we were doing good now, but he has been diagnosed since then with intractable seizure disorder, which means medication ain't getting it. But we're on a good roll presently. So that I didn't know that. And I thought I knew a lot about autism, so I didn't know that it happens a lot when they're teenagers. So just be on the lookout for that. So we have that. When it comes to people who are non-speakers, also around 30%. That 30% is like some magic number. So about 30%. And most of the people that we talk about when we talk about significant behaviors, those tend to be people who are non-speakers. And that makes total sense, because if you have thoughts and feelings and needs and you cannot communicate that, how frustrating would that be? Oh my goodness. Because we're also talking about people who may not have the ability to point to things. So, because you guys, if somebody put tape over your mouth, well, you just go, well, I can write it down or I'll point. But imagine you can't do that either. I mean, how difficult would life be on a constant basis? There's a guy, his name is Peter Vermillion. He's from Brussels. He's got some really interesting research. And his research is on the autistic brain's inability to make predictions. And so out of the 30% who are non-speakers, almost 30% also with significant behaviors. But the most significant behaviors, meaning self-injurious behavior, putting their fist through walls, is between 12 and 15%. And sometimes medication helps. Sometimes parents have to jump from medication to medication. There are certainly physicians that are better than others. That's actually probably something that I should, because how I get information about who people think are good, I just like post it to Facebook and they say, who's got a good physician for? There's a guy in Miami that I think is excellent with medication management. And I think, and I don't remember her name. I think it's a woman neurologist in Orange County, but watch for that, because see, you just triggered my head. So I will find a couple people and put them on our website. But yeah, so I will also tell you, actually, like so I live in Broward. The only after school and summer program that we have for kids with significant behaviors is ARC of Broward County. That's it. There's no other place. And of course they fill up, right? That fills up, and those kids have no place. So those parents who cannot get space there, they cannot have a job that goes beyond the school day. It's a horrible situation. And I'm sure that everybody in here can relate, because if Broward County, with all the money that gets poured into Broward County and all our taxes, if we can't get it together, yeah. I might also add that I actually graduated from Interlochen High School, and you guys probably don't even know where Interlochen is. It, it's in Putnam County. So I had 89 kids in my graduating class, because, it's funny. I have to tell you, I was in a legislative meeting, advocacy group yesterday, and somebody in the group was from Lee County, and she said, I said, who's your representative? And she told me, and she goes, oh, but they don't have any power. I'm like, oh, sister, yes. I use that. I graduated from Interlochen High School all the time, because when legislators hear I'm from Broward County, they're like, Broward County. But when I say Putnam County, they're like, oh, what happened? What's going on? They become very interested. So if you're from a rural area, you want to use that card, because let me tell you, legislatively, get you a lot more than from somebody like me saying they're from Broward. So I hope I answered the question.
What about, how does the Autism Society educate the public on aggressive behaviors?
Well, on those speakers, there are speakers on a variety of topics. So there's a couple on behaviors. So we do that. But I mean, if you guys have, I've actually never had anybody ask me for that. So if you want to throw some ideas at me, I will put my email in the chat, but it's super easy. It's Stacey@autismfl.org.
I'll be glad to send out your email after the fact, and if you can send me a copy of your presentation.
Okay.
I can send that as well. We did have a question. Can you give the info on the military autism support group again?
It's the third Wednesday of every month, and it's on Zoom, and it's in the evening. It's at 7:00. We have two ladies. One is Carla Mercer. She's the main person that runs it. She is retired military. And then Carmen Brown. And actually, if you go to, even without the website, if you go, we have a specific page on our website. I mean, even if you don't go to the support group, I did a video where I videoed Carmen, who's married to retired military, and Carla, who is retired military. And Carmen interviewed Carla, and that is on our website. And a lot of, Carla is so smart. All that stuff with insurance, and TRICARE and all that stuff, all that military stuff that I don't know anything about, is in that talk. So you might actually get like the information that you're looking for by joining a support group in that talk that they give. It's like a half hour long. It's really good.
Good. All right, I'm going to open it up to see if anybody has any questions. So you can unmute your mic, because I think we covered the majority of questions in the chat. So we have a few more minutes if anyone wants to jump in and ask a question. Anna?
Yeah, who was the researcher you mentioned again? I missed the name.
Peter Vermillion. So Peter Vermillion, his research is showing that, and it's really, if you ever get to see him, like he spoke, when I first met him was at a CARD conference. So CARD is the Center for Autism and Related Disabilities. So they have a conference every January, and I met Peter there. And it's just Google him, Peter Vermillion from Brussels. And it's I mean, just when he does his presentation, my brain was just like, oh my gosh, it was so good, because what he's proposing is that people with autism have a really difficult time making predictions. Well, we all make predictions every second of every day. I predicted what this was going to be like. You guys predicted, oh, okay, so this girl's going to come on here and talk about autism, and I don't know what's going on with Autism Society. So you knew you were going to sit at a computer. You knew you were going to see some boxes on the screen. You knew there was going to be a chat. But imagine if you went through life and your brain didn't make predictions about what was coming next. You'd be scared all the time. You'd be stressed out.
It makes 100% sense.
Yes.
I can look at my own child and see it.
Yes. One of the things that was like at the beginning of his presentation, and I'm in the back of the room, and like I said, I'm just like, my brain was just going on fire, was he said, think about an emergency room. So when you go, you get a call. So the police or somebody, relative, calls you and says, your loved one is in the ER. Okay, so you hustle over there and you get there. And imagine if they say to you, okay, you can't come in. You got to just wait outside and we'll let you know. We'll let you know when we have information. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to pace. You're going to rock. not going to want to talk to anybody because you got to get out of my face because I'm very stressed. I can't deal right now. And then think of a person with autism. Pacing,
Oh, 100%.
talking. I mean, it just like made total sense to me. It was so it's pretty interesting. He's got a few books out on it, so you can check him out. He's on my list of people to get. So I had reached out to him. It was during COVID, though, so I have to reach out to him again. I want to have him as one of our speakers that we have as part of our premiere series, and he did get back to me, but he was so crazed with because during COVID, everybody wanted him online, and so he couldn't fit me in. So I need to get back to him and see if he could do that because I just think he's amazing.
Delissa, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. I want to know if there is any trainings for working with an individual who have autism, like that have behaviors, because I have a client, she is 40 and she has autism and she have behaviors that was maladaptive behaviors, and I can't keep anyone on staff is because they don't know how to work with her. And I try, look up resources to try to work with her on a different level. And then she was denied for behavioral services, which she needs. So right now she doesn't have a behavior analyst following her. So we're just trying to do our best.
Okay, that's got bad stuff written all over it. So, well, first, where are you at? Like, what part of the state are you in?
I'm in Polk County. I'm in central, the central region in Winter Haven, Poinciana, that area.
Okay, so if you have not reached out to CARD at UCF,
CARD at UCF.
Yes, and if you sometimes people, when I say CARD, they'll say, "Oh, Stacey, I tried that." If you do that and it is not helpful, it should be helpful. They have behavior analysts. It's free. They are all about autism. So if you do not get that, you just send me an email, and I will reach out to the director and get you some help.
Are you going to leave your email in the chat box?
I'm going to send it out after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
But yeah, so there's that. But wait though, that whole thing with no behavior coverage.
Yeah.
That's no.
Well, she was denied for the analyst for the funding, and I asked the coordinator, I said, have you sent them the notes? We're putting the notes in about the behaviors she have, and it's getting worse, with no help. And she lives in a group home.
Who's denying it? Is APD denying it?
APD is denying it. And she lives in a group home, and there's a lot of changes, with the group home, with new staff, and she's been through a lot. And then with the changes in the group home, I provide companion services. So if it's not me personally working with her, it's like no one else, they run because they don't, the staff sometimes are not trained to, be able to meet her needs.
Yeah, well, there are behavioral group homes. So there's that. But there's also, and if you reach out to me, I can probably help you a little bit.
Okay.
But that sounds like a crisis case to me. And
yeah.
I would not, they know me at APD. So if you want to reach out to me, maybe I can contact some people and get some help there.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? We've got a couple people that are wanting to know about swimming classes in their area. What's the best way or where would you go to see who has swimming classes?
The list, if you go to our website and you go to the drowning prevention page, I think it's under resources. If you got to scroll because there's a lot on that page, but down at the bottom, there's a whole bunch of swim instructors that have been vetted, if you will. They've been recommended to us by people with autism, by families of children with autism. And so there's a list there, and it's from people across the state. So if you don't see something in your area there, again, if you want to reach out to me, I have connections with people who are, because I'm on a bunch of drowning prevention committees. So if you don't see someone in your area, you can reach out to me, and then I'll get you hooked up.
Great.
I have another question. My name is Josephine Hunt. I'm a support coordinator in Polk County.
Mhm.
I have a young man who, he's about 27 years old, and over the years, the behaviors continue to get worse, unfortunately. He's going to an ADT, and the one thing he was doing while he was at home during COVID, he was actually taking his clothes off. Now he started going back to the ADT. He was taking some of his clothes off, not everything, but now, after about a year of not taking his clothes off, he is doing it again. So we have gotten behavior services to do an assessment at this time, and we're hoping that the LRC will continue to give them behavioral analysis. But just wanted to know if you, his mom has done everything. She's taken the tags out. She washes the clothes. She makes sure that they're the brand that he wants. It's the color that he wants. She does all of that. But now he's in a ADT in a classroom alone because he's upsetting the other persons there.
Does he have a way to communicate?
Yes, he does. Mostly one word is sentences, nothing long.
Okay, because most of the time I've had, so like we talked about at the opening, I've been an educational advocate with Family Network on Disabilities for 25 years. And I've had those kids who strip down naked. They strip down naked when the parent takes them to school, because they know I can strip down naked and you're not taking me into the classroom. I don't want to go to school. In the classroom, I'll show you. I'm going to get naked, and then everybody freaks out, right? Because everybody freaks out. That's what happens. So usually that type of behavior is one of two things. It's either attention seeking, because you got to pay attention to somebody who's naked,
Right.
or they're trying to communicate and they're not able to get their point across. Those are usually, because what the behavior analyst is going to do, they're going to look for the function of behavior. So I would imagine it's going to be one of those two. And then you have to so once you identify the function, then you try to meet that need, right? So if it's communication, maybe, I have kids who might use one word at a time, but that doesn't mean that we don't also give them some type of communication device. And if you guys don't know about FAST, FAAST, they provide free all different types of technology. And so, maybe having someone from FAST take a look at the way he's communicating, and maybe the adults around him think that the one word at a time is good for him, but maybe in his head, he's got a lot of words in his head, but he doesn't know how to get them out. He's frustrated, and so he takes his clothes off.
Right.
But also if he thinks that you're gonna make it, this is a hard one. If he's figured out that he doesn't want to do what you want him to do,
Right.
he takes his clothes off, he's gonna get to go in that room all by himself. He's not going to be required to do anything. You got to do what a CBA is going to call, backward chaining. So you've got to build back into getting him back out there with other people. And it may take time. It have to be really slow with heavy rewards. And for some people, it's tricky to figure out what is, or the guy, what is he willing to get so that he keeps his clothes on. So definitely behavior analyst. Also, like I said before, CARD. And, it's interesting because we get people that will tell us, oh, CARD doesn't do anything for adults. So about 2 months ago, I emailed all the CARD directors and I said, we keep getting all these calls, people saying you guys aren't doing anything for adults. And all 7 of them, I think there's 7, they did. They emailed me with a list of all the stuff that they provide for adults. So I put that. It's actually, if you go to our adult page, it's a PDF. If you click on the PDF, you will get the list of what the cards, the Centers for Autism, do for adults. So
Okay.
don't hesitate in reaching out to them. And again, if you do not get the type of answer that you think is good, you can call me and I will connect you with the people. But they are fairly nicely funded. And so I always encourage people to utilize that service.